Hello, everybody. Chapter 8, directing to connecting, right? Directing to connecting. And did anyone read?
Yes.
Yes? Listened? Yes, I love that. Listen and read all the above. It's all good stuff, right? Yeah, right, me too, right? Anyone got any big ahas they want to go ahead and share right off the bat? Like, we got to talk about it. We got to touch on it right now because it was great. Anyone?
Sometimes you had to stop trying to lead. You had to make an effort to connect.
Yes. I
sometimes we
love
think that
that.
leadership is just lead from the front,
Yes.
and then not necessarily be every time
Yes.
the case.
Yeah,
So
I
said
love that.
He had a hard time at the beginning because he wanted to be the big guy all the time.
Yeah.
And it was humbling for him to say, I don't know how to do that. And then when he started asking for help, he thought, oh, the two samples that he gives, like the guy, they asked him 2 days questions and they exhausted him.
Yes.
And he said, oh, that's a different way to lead.
Yes.
And then the other lady, they helped him to understand how to lead as well. So the coach, that he says, it was really humbling.
Yes. I
That
love
was
it.
good. I like that part too.
Yeah.
I love it, right? I love it. Okay, so Rusty, are we live too? Oh, yes. Let's say hello. Hello to KW College Park out there. We love you. Thank you for tuning in. If you have questions or comments, post them. We'll answer. Okay? And then hello, everyone out there. We are working on John Maxwell's workbook, Leadership, Chapter 8, Directing to Connecting. And I got to say that this chapter speaks to me a ton because I've been a great director for a good 35, probably 46 years, my entire life. I have directed people all my life, even my parents. That is who I am, right? It's who I've been. It's generally my personality profile as well, right? Like, I'm just a high D in the DISC assessment world. I'm a high D, a high I in the DISC assessment world. Like, I'm 99D and I is what I am.
I'm a high O.
Yeah, I'm a 99D and I in the DISC assessment world, and I open with closes. So I don't have a great value in small talk. I don't see the point of small talk, right? I don't want to engage in small talk. I truly don't, right? It's not who I am. My husband is fantastic at asking me questions like, what do you think about us doing this? And I'm like, I don't care, just plan it. Like, and then if I don't like it, then you'll hear from me, right?
That's when the small talk comes in.
And it's not.
It's a big talk. It's not
And it's
even
usually
a
not
It's not small talk either. You know, like, okay, let's touch on that real quick. You know, our marriage coach, our marriage coach told me that is one of my huge things I need to learn to overcome. Right? We see him this Friday, so we'll see how things are going. And he did say, like, hey, one of the things that you do is you want to always improve everything. And so when you and your husband go to do an activity, you will automatically go into that activity with the perception of, how do I improve it? Oh, I don't like, so we stayed in Santa Monica for the weekend for our anniversary, right? I was very intentional about not criticizing one thing, like not improving any of the experience. It took everything in my spirit, in my soul, to not say, oh, we should have done this, or you should have done that. everything, right? Took everything I had. Truly, honestly, everything. Because as soon as I walked into the hotel, I met the valet, I was like, don't love the valet yet, right? Like, I walked into the hotel, like, I was like, right? I was quiet. I said, okay. The marriage coach said, I must first come from blessings and then shift into how do you improve it. And I needed to do the improving after the experience, right? And just enjoy the current experience, right? So, because then he'd be open for it. Like, oh, by the way, what'd you think of the hotel kind of question he'll have, because he always asks me after. He'll be like, how was the weekend? Did you like it? He always looks for the affirmations, even though he's not an affirmation guy. That's not one of his spiritual gifts. He asks for it, right? He always wants the affirmations. I think that's just a husband thing.
I was going to say.
Yeah, I think it's just a husband thing, right?
It's a guy thing.
Yeah, it's okay. So with that said, we had a fantastic weekend, and yes, there was room for improvement, and I didn't acknowledge it or say anything about it. I was very good. I was a good wife and only complained about having a headache. So you don't lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, not leadership. I love that. Dwight D. Eisenhower, right? Like, that's assault, not leadership. While growing up, there were those in authority over you. You, more directors or connectors. What would you say when you were growing up? What did you have, directors or connectors?
Directors.
My dad, 100% director. He just looked at me and I was like, yes, sir.
Yeah.
He's military, so I was like, yes, sir. What would you like, sir? Right? He was not about connecting. He would never say, I love you. He was not that person. I was saying, hi, Daddy, I love you.
But I had to say that I had one connector that,
Yes.
yeah, the majority was directors, but I had a big connector, and it impacted me.
Yeah, I would say thank you for sharing that. My mom was a great connector, right? Our mom was a great connector. She was even more a connector with you guys than my brother and I. So there's like 10 years between Aim and I. 11 years, thank you.
But who's counting?
11 years. 11 years between Aim and I.
She had experience.
Yeah, she did.
She improved because they don't come with the manual, right?
I would give
They
you
had to learn.
100%. Yeah, my mom says it all day long. Sorry, Facebook land, bleep this out. She says it all day long, like, Lori, I was the worst mother to you in the world. I said, it's okay, I don't remember my childhood. So it's all good, right? Mom, I don't remember what you did to me, so don't worry about it, right? So, and Aim and I have different fathers. So her dad, what would you say your dad was? A director or a connector?
He's my director.
He was your director? Yeah. What about you, Amanda? What would you say? You had directors or connectors?
Probably director.
Directors. Interesting. Melissa?
Both director and the connector. My mom.
Oh, so you had a balance. Yeah, nice. Nice. Monique?
Same.
Director and a connector? Yeah.
It's almost like because the fact that we've been so exposed to directors for so long that it almost trains us and to almost being bred to be a director as well rather than a connector.
Yes.
It takes a purposeful effort to actually be more of a connector because it kind of goes against our natural grain of wanting to dictate everything.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what we were exposed to.
100%. Yes, I would say so. Thank you. So have you intentionally changed your focus to connecting versus directing? What would you say? I know I have.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I've been more intentional about it in the last 2 years than I have in my entire life, right? Because I realized, like, I railroad over everyone. Like, that's just what I was doing. And I was like, whoa, that's not getting me results at all, right? So I had to learn to connect with people, right? And that puts you in a place of vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to slow down, take the time to be intentional and build relationships, right? So welcome to a new paradigm. When you lead by assumption, when have you led by assumption and it failed? Anyone? Anyone had any opportunity where they led by assumption and it failed. Personal or business.
Well, I don't know what assumption. That like if you assuming something.
You assume that it is this way. I did it once when I was 16. You want me to share that to give you an example?
Yeah.
Okay, so for a short period of time, my mother made me go live with my father, right? Because I was disobedient and strong-willed. So when I went to live with my father, well, all my friends were still back in El Monte, and my dad lives in Covina Hills. And so when I lived there in Covina Hills, I had a boyfriend at the time that I wanted to come over. And I had some friends at the time that I wanted to come over. So they came over, and I just made all these decisions without talking with my father. Okay? And I did not drive at that time. So I assumed my father would be in agreement with what I want to do. Because I want to do it, so why wouldn't you be in agreement with it? Right? I'm your daughter. That's what you do. You take care of me and you make me happy. Right? That's what I assumed. So my friends came, and my friends needed to go home. Their home was Arcadia and Temple City. And we lived in Covina Hills. And so I said to my dad, they need to go home. When will you take them home? And my dad looked at me and he said, I'm not taking them home. You invited them here. Figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You assume that I would take someone home. You did not ask me. And I said, I'm 16. I learned a lot that day.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot, right? That is leading by assumption.
Okay.
And that was when I was 16. I've done a lot more of that since then. So, anyone else have a story they'd love to share? You are good. You don't assume anything. Sheesh. Man, I'm so sorry. My dad told me assuming means what, guys?
Make an ass out of you and me.
Uh-huh. Yeah. My dad taught me that day when I was 16. Gosh, I'm such an assumer. What the heck? Oh, you guys are all great. Sheesh.
You had to go back to 16 years old to find one.
Yeah, because it's the one that stood out to me the most, right? Like it was one of those transformational moments like you just spoke about, right?
Okay.
That you're like, yeah, I learned in that moment, right? So directing. Someone go down that aisle for me, or that column, I should say. Go ahead and share. What's directing? Anyone?
What do I?
Go, thank you.
Authoritative, talking, top down, enlisting, assuming, gives answers, my agenda.
Whew. Boy, was that me. I feel like this whole chapter is about me. Okay, someone got connecting? Sister, please read connecting. You're such a great connector.
Collaborative, listening, side by side, empowering, understanding, ask questions, your agenda.
So that's her. That describes my sister 110%. Because she lives her life. I don't even understand how she does that. It is,
Yeah.
right? You can sit there and go, yes.
I for sure think that I'm a connector.
You're like, oh, that's my sister directing. And oh, that's me connecting, right?
Yep.
That's us.
100%.
Right. The goal of connecting is to find common ground with the leader initiating. So make the leader shift to connecting. What is the biggest challenge you face in connecting with others? Do any of you have a challenge in here with connecting with other people?
Being vulnerable, I would say that when I am judging or assuming they're a certain way because of how they look or,
Yes.
yeah. And then when you get to know them, you're like, well, I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
I was gonna say fear.
Fear. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
What about if I'm not good enough, or they don't accept it, or
Yes. Yes.
So sometimes you're like, I'd rather stay behind.
Yeah. I remember my business coach 7 years ago or so, when I went to one of my first like family reunions or whatever, right? Our business conferences. right? And that's where all the big agents that are doing like 300 transactions and millionaire and 2 millionaire real estate agents, right? And my business coach told me at that time, like, I want you to go introduce yourself to one. And I was like, not gonna happen. No way. And she's like, why? Fear. Fear that I'm not worthy enough, that I would be a waste of their moment. Can you believe that I had the belief that if they didn't have time for me, or if I intruded upon them, I would waste their moments, right? Which just tells you where my brain was. Really tells you where my brain was. Like, I thought my time was so valuable that if anyone intruded upon my life, that, like, I looked at them like, you're wasting my time, right? Because that's the reality of where your heart is when you do that.
You know what my mom used to say?
Yes.
The lion thinks that everybody's just like him.
Yes.
So sometimes it's like you think because that's the way that you're thinking about that. I
Exactly.
said, not everybody's just like you. So
Not at all. Number 1, humility, right? Write it down. Humility. Let people know you need them. So as you read the story about John Wooden, what insights did you gain about being a leader who is humble? And what is stopping you from asking for help?
again, fear, you know? What they're gonna think. Like, oh, you're an idiot? You don't know this? You know? So it's different fears.
Yes.
Because sometimes it's fear like, I'm not worth it, but sometimes it's fear like, oh, they're gonna think that I'm not there yet.
Yes.
So I don't wanna pretend or show that,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, I need help. Well, everybody needs help. Different aspects,
That's right.
but sometimes that's me stopping like, okay, you don't wanna show that you are vulnerable because what they're gonna think.
Yeah. So true. Thank you, Patricia. So true. Right? Number 2, curiosity. Ask people questions. From the list below, identify a possible reason why asking questions is difficult for you. Number 1, they assume they have the answers. Or number 2, they value what they think more than what others think. Or they prioritize directing others over understanding others. Or they don't recognize the need to find common ground. Or they don't understand that questions help to manage expectations. Has anyone had a moment where they had a conversation with someone and that person repeated that conversation back to them? Have you had any of those?
Like a counselor session?
No, I had
all the time.
a person.
Yeah.
I had a person who I was in conversation with just did it to
Oh,
me.
yeah.
Like, it was a learning moment for me. I was like, oh no, that's not what I said at all. But that was what he heard.
Wow.
Right.
It was
That's
really
why it's
interesting.
actually good to do that, because
Yes.
then it shows that you're on track with the person that you're speaking with.
Yeah.
That they heard you exactly like you said, how you intended to be heard.
So when it comes to the real estate aspect, because we're all realtors in here except for Amanda, right? When it comes to the real estate aspect of it, how valuable is it for you to repeat back to your client what they just said?
Extremely.
Very much so. Yeah.
Would you say you all do it?
No.
Oh,
No.
No.
I need
Sometimes.
to. I need to.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not every word, every phrase, but I mean, maybe in a synopsis, like, okay, let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly, and then I'll repeat back what she told me to make sure
Right.
we're on the same page.
Right.
So I'll kind of like group it together in more of a summary format, but
And why is that important that you do that?
because I want to make sure that I wrote everything down, that I actually heard her or him correctly, so that I can move forward with the transaction in the way that's going to be productive for them.
Correct.
I don't want to take their transaction down my path. I want to take their transaction down their path and be supportive in that process.
But you're the realtor. Don't you know the way?
Of course. I know the way, but I need to hear them out first. Make sure that, they're the one transacting, though. I'm the one
Exactly.
facilitating the transaction. But it's
Exactly.
their home.
Exactly. It's their story.
Mhm.
We're just here to walk them through it,
Right.
to keep them legally in line, right?
Mhm.
And it's their story. And so if you don't clearly understand their story, how are you going to get them there?
Mhm.
Right? How are you going to be able to do it? And so the best way to do it is to always. So let me get this right. This is what I heard. Am I correct? Especially on the important moments. Like, now you said AIM will have a challenge with a buyer in wanting to go ahead and move to close to buy a house. So I'll remind her, okay, go through the calendar with them again. Okay, you said it was important that you move because you wanted to move by this time. Is that still important to you? Right? Is asking all of those questions one by one by one. Yes, it seems redundant. Yes, it seems like, oh my gosh. And the person receiving it will be so grateful because it will help them to clearly figure out where they're going rather than you just telling them where they're going, right? They take ownership of the story. You're just the facilitator. That's it, right? So asking great questions, makes a big, big difference. So what is your plan to start asking more questions to connect better? Number 3, write it down. Effort. Go out of your way to connect with people. How many of you got up today and said, I want to intentionally connect with someone today?
I did, actually, when I was reading.
There you go,
I was actually
right?
finishing it up this morning. And
Yes?
So yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yep.
I did it last year, right? I said to myself last year as well, like, these are the relationships I want to build. And I built them last year, right? And I did it in various ways, like JohnMaxwell had stated in the book. Having dinner parties, right? Going out, going to dinner, inviting them in for tea. Doing things like that gives you the opportunity to really connect, right?
Yeah.
Build resourceful relationships, deep, intentional relationships. Don't leave it to chance. Decide, there is someone out there that I really like, and I want to be in relationship with them. And don't leave it to Facebook. Don't leave it to Facebook. Okay? Take it off of Facebook. Right? So you love someone that posts all the time. You love the way they post. You love the stories that they talk about. Like, that feels good. That's something that's important to you. It's valuable to you. Pick up your phone and call them. There's a call feature in Facebook. Call them. Say, you know what? I love your posts. I love who you are. I would love to just get coffee and talk a little bit with you and connect with you. And start building those relationships. Don't be afraid of reaching outside. So many people are stuck with the friends they've had. And I shouldn't say stuck because some of them are fantastic. And yet, do you want to improve? Do you want to add to? Do you want to grow? Right? Your sphere of influence and the people that you're around. So number 4, trustworthiness. Be someone others can count on. People do not connect with someone they don't trust. My sister, she will hound me until I do a task that she's asked. Do you know why she will hound me? Because she is like, I told them I was going to do it, so you better get it done. And I'm like, well, I didn't tell them I was going to do it. You told them you were going to do it. Right, but she knew that it was going to have to go through me to get it done. And she committed for us that we were going to do it. And I mean, one night we had to drive out to a property in Riverside, like 8 o'clock at night, because she was like, I told her we were going to go.
So what's number 4?
Trustworthiness. Be someone who does what you say. Right? People do not connect with someone they don't trust. On the occasion that you lose trust, I love this.
Yes.
Because you all say like, oh, I can never have that relationship back. Such not a truth. You can regain that relationship. Now, if someone chooses not to, That's their decision,
Mhm.
right? So on the occasion that you lose trust, how can John's list on page 159, right, help you regain it back? Anyone have it? Anyone open up to it?
Fully acknowledge what I have done wrong.
Fully acknowledge what I've done wrong.
Yeah,
Yes.
and apologize.
There's more if somebody else, I just didn't want to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you wrote that down. Does anyone have anything else that stands out to them on page 159?
And apologize.
Apologize.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because sometimes we apologize without apologize.
Yes.
Like you just mention it, but you are not sorry.
Yes.
You justify what you did.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
I said that because of this. You're not really saying sorry. You're just
Yeah,
trying to
that's
justify
true.
what you did.
I love that, Monique, because I do that quite a bit. Like, I'm like, hey, you know, it is what it is, right? Rather than just saying, I'm sorry.
And sometimes it was like, it felt like it
Did you
was
see
a
that? Do you feel
rep-
that? Whew, I took everything. And I wasn't even really saying I'm sorry.
And sometimes it feels like it was the right thing at that time.
Yes.
When in retrospect it was, oh wow,
Yes.
that was totally the wrong way to go about that. And then own it. And say, you know what, I was totally off the mark on that one there. And like you said, acknowledge it. you know?
Acknowledge it. Don't justify it. Jeez, Monique. I don't appreciate that. I just want you to know.
Because you're right.
Number 5, generosity. Give first, give continually. When we refrain from giving with a scarcity mentality, the little we have will become less. When we give generously with an abundance mentality, what we give away will multiply. Henry Nouwen. So I know, like, that's so true, because I'll have clients that are like, in the real estate world, I don't want to pay you any money. Right? They just say that. They go, I only want to pay you this much. And that's how their entire transaction is. Right? And that's how their entire life is.
Yeah.
They walk around life like this, holding on, and I walk around like this. Okay, it'll come back. Right? I'm okay. Right?
I had a transaction in December when my sister was here, and the seller was nasty from the beginning to the end. Okay, and
No names
my
disclosed.
sister said, "Don't give her any presents." And I thought about it like, well, that's not me.
Yeah.
So I did give her a present,
Yes.
and my sister said, "She doesn't deserve it." I said, "Well, it's not about her; it's about me." You know, I had to. I'm thankful, even though she's not.
Yes.
I'm thankful because I got this transaction.
Yes.
You know, at the end, I had to kind of go. For a moment, I had to admit that I thought like, yeah, she's right. No, she doesn't deserve it. But I thought like, no, I am thankful because
Yeah.
I
You did the
closed it.
transaction.
Yeah. So, but sometimes,
You had to stay true to your integrity. Right?
yeah.
And that's the truth. Right? My business coach has told me, like, there was one, I have a disclaimer in all my contracts that says, like, hey, if we don't like being in business with each other and we're not in an active escrow, we can cancel. And that's the reason there is because I don't like to be in business with people who have negative, heavy, ugly, fearful energy.
Yes.
Because that I personally feed off of that. And I am very sensitive to it. I'm very aware of another person's energy when they enter my space. I feel it, I know it, and I'm like, it impacts me. So my business coach told me you need to drop them, let them go. They're not worth the money because they're dragging all the rest of your business down with it. And I was like, oh, she's true. She's right. And I released, right? And instantly I was lifted. Instantly. And I did it in a very, very professional manner. I just said, I can't service you to the ability that you need. So I'd be glad to connect you with another realtor.
So did you tell her she was negative?
No, just very demanding. This person was very, very demanding, right? And I was like, oh no. At that time, I couldn't manage that, right? Couldn't at all, and released, right? It's very different every time. But you need to be aware of it and know who you are. I just know me personally, I feel people's energy, right? And I'm like, you're grumpy, don't come around me. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to feel it, right? Unless you came to like, hey, cheer me up, coach me through this, then I'll be like, yes, let's do it. Otherwise, if you're going to sit and pout in it, I ain't interested.
And I think even giving, it goes far beyond just monetary. It's giving of your time.
Yes.
Your resources, maybe your service.
Yes.
That you're providing, and even to the extent of praying for somebody. So there's a lot of different ways to give in such a way that you can connect.
Yes.
Over and above just monetary. Because I think when people say the word giving, the first thought that comes to mind is money, of course, but there's a lot of other ways to contribute towards somebody in building the relationship that doesn't necessarily have to be built around money.
Yeah.
So.
Well, definitely.
And what's great is that, right, is that you ask them, like, how can I help you, right? And they'll just say, I just need you to listen. Okay, great, right? Or could you just pray for me? Fantastic. Let's pray right now, right? Or I need financial help. Okay, great, right? Ask them, how can I help you when they're upset, when they're not in that place, right? Don't assume, right, that you know exactly what they need. Just ask. Like, how can I? So, how can becoming generous help you become a better person and leader?
Did I miss number 6?
Oh, did I skip?
Is that
It was
the
generosity.
bottom of 5?
Yeah, number 6 is right below, just the question right below.
Okay.
How can becoming generous help you become a better person, leader?
Well, sometimes being generous can change people's attitude. Because even though they're being negative and sometimes judging you, and then if in top of that you still being generous and nice to them, it might make them question the way they're behaving and change it. I have people that say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I came out wrong."
Yeah.
Like, no, you didn't, but okay.
Well,
so you make it change.
Yes, right? And then number 6, so moving on to number 6, which is listening. Open the best door to connecting with people, right? Listening to them, right? What is more generous than anything is to share your time. And I love when JohnMaxwell said, my ears don't get me in trouble.
Yeah. Exactly. Your mouth does.
My mouth does. I know that problem, right? Like, when you use those ears, you take time to
I wrote
hear.
that down right next. I said, sorry, I start asking questions, and I put my ears don't get me in trouble.
Yes, 100%. Like, I was listening to it this morning, and I was like, because I always listen to it again right before I come in and teach, right? So it just refreshes my mind. And I was listening, and I was like, as I just had a conversation with my husband, and I was kind of grumpy because I was unaware of certain things, right? Like, I was like, oh, like, you have to just, like, be quiet, and listen rather than having to state my personal opinions, right? My personal position, right? So how has not listening hindered your leadership?
For me, on a personal level,
Mm-hmm.
now that my kids are all grown,
Yes.
not listening and just saying stuff, they put the wall up and then they don't talk to you. And you're just like, okay, so you have to step back and be like, okay, you need to.
It's hard though, because as moms, we try to fix, help, we know better. We're just like,
It was different when they're home because they're home. But
Yeah.
when they're gone,
they don't have to.
they don't have to. And it's like, okay, you need to shut up. Just listen.
my gosh.
So I'm struggling with that right now. That, so, yeah, it's tough, that one.
See how this impacts you personally,
It
right?
it does.
You're not just leadershiping in business, you're leadershiping personally.
Yeah, like,
Yes.
you have to learn how to kind of balance everything out, so
Yes.
they'll still come to you with their stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I will tell you, raising my adult children, I think is way harder
Yes.
than raising 2, 3, 4, 5,
I
6.
agree 100%.
I agree.
Because my children, I could just look at them and give them the look. I learned it from my father well, and they would listen. Now my 22 and 21 and my 23-year-old are like, I don't care about your look.
Right?
I don't care about your opinion. You're an old lady who doesn't know anything. Right? And then every once in a while they have their moments where they're like, oh, you are wise. It's challenging. I'm with you, Melissa. I'm with you. Thank you for sharing.
I think one of the key things that he said that I wrote down is if you never listen, before long the people around you will stop talking to you and you become isolated as a leader.
Oh, I love
So
that.
I was like,
Ah,
and my coach always says that you ask good questions and then just sit and listen.
yes.
You know, there should be a lot more of them talking than you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Like, what is it? Seth, whatever his book, good leaders eat last, right? Because they're asking lots of questions, so they never finish their meal, right? Same thing. What's his name? Seth. The heck's his name? Seth, I forget.
Seth Campbell?
No, that's one of our KW guys.
Yeah.
Review this list. I'll come back to it. Review this list. I made a list of negatives of not listening well. I reminded myself daily to listen well. I stopped interrupting. That's a big one, right? Like a big one. And people will excuse it with, oh, it's because I'm going to forget. I got to say it before. Do you realize how rude it is? How self-focused it is? It means that I wasn't even listening to you in the beginning. Right? Like, I didn't even realize that until I heard that this morning again on JohnMaxwell. Like, it just means that I wasn't even listening to you.
Or that what you have to say is more important than what you're saying.
Yes.
And I go through that, especially with my kids or husband, and I didn't realize how rude it was until you see somebody else do it, and you're like, gosh, that's rude. And then I'm like, oh, shoot, I do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to do it, especially in meetings, right? Like, you guys will sense it in my ALC meetings, right? I tend to do it. And so what I'm going to do from now on to help me with this, because one, I do forget, right? And two is I'm going to have a piece of paper and I'm just going to write down my thoughts, right? Because I just jump right in there. I'm that person that's like,
I do
whoa,
too.
right? Like, let's talk. And I thrive off it. I'm like, come on.
I'm just waiting for that split second for you to take a breath. Well, this is what that interrupting part, and it's like, no.
And I do it with other agents when I'm in conversation with other agents. Like, you gotta like, shut up, Lori. All right. So, I started asking great questions instead of telling, to asking. And I invited people to hold me accountable for listening, right? So Amy and Amanda, I give you permission to say, listening, Lori, listening, right? Like, I give you permission when I go into wanting to fix everything in your world to say, just listen, Lori, right? Totally okay with that.
I like what he said. He would have his pad of paper and he put a big L. Which doesn't sound for Lori. It stands for listen.
Well,
But if you
yes, I
So which change do you need to make to increase your listening effectiveness? I am going to write down things when they come to my mind now. like in my listing appointments, it's very easy for me because I tell them, I come in with a clipboard and I tell them like these silver sparkles are real. I forget things, so I'm going to be taking notes during our talk. They're my silver sparkles. So I'm taking notes while you're talking with me. And so for now on, when I have questions, I'm going to just write them down, right? Because that will help me. Anyone else have a challenge with listening? Melissa's like, okay, I'm going to try that. I'm going to work on that one. Anyone else? Any suggestions? Something they would do?
I think it's a great approach, and I always, set those expectations up front. Like, you don't mind if I take a few notes, just because I want to be able to recall, our conversation and everything.
So at our ALC meeting on Wednesday, I'll be taking notes, guys. So number 7, write it down. Encouragement. Give people oxygen for their soul. I like that. Who has been your greatest encourager? When I was growing up, it was Amy's dad. Boy, he was a great cheerleader. I know where Amy gets it from. He really was. He was a great cheerleader. Babe, you are a great writer. You keep writing. Babe, you are a great basketball player. You keep playing. Like, he just always encouraged me. Even if I did it terrible, he still encouraged me. My mom was like, real. You are a terrible singer. Don't do that. That's where I got my real from, my mother, my father. Anyone have a great encourager in their life?
You're I think, one of my biggest encouragers.
Oh, thank you. I hope I balance more encouraging than I do pushing.
Yeah. Well, I'm used to you, so
Yeah.
it's all encouraging.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Anyone?
I would say Patricia. I mean, she's a tough cookie, and she'll tell it like it is, even when it's not the best timing.
Yeah.
but she's also tells me all the time how good I am, and and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, work-wise, probably Robin. She's
Yeah.
very, you can do it always. She's
Yes.
really good with that.
Yes.
Home-wise, it used to be my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the cheerleader.
Mm.
Didn't matter what she did.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's got to be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad's not the cheerleader, let me tell you.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. My dad recently has been a great encourager now. Like, he is really, I don't know, like, if he's going through something personally or whatever, but he really is spending a lot of time, like, just speaking positive words into my life. Words of, you're doing such a great job. I'm so proud of you. Keep doing it.
My dad's trying to step up.
Allow
he's
them.
Realizing, oh, well, wait, my kids are not calling me. I guess my wife is still there.
Yes.
He's trying, and you see it. Like,
Yeah.
he's stepping out of his little box.
Yeah. Allow them. I know my dad is really like, I've noticed it now. We'll go and have lunch together or whatever, and something I can tell is in his heart, and he's just offering words of encouragement. I mean, there was one time I was really down on myself, and like, I always like, oh, maybe my kids shouldn't work for me, right? Maybe they should go work for someone else. And he was like, are you crazy? You have the strongest work ethic ever. You are the teacher for those kids. Teach them. He goes, you will push them beyond anyone else. Everyone else will just dismiss them. And I was like, oh, because, people speak into your life and they're like, oh, you're just enabling your kids, or, oh, you're just this, or, oh, they're so lucky they can just go work for their mom. Really? Come try working for me. See how it goes. Not many last. She didn't know what she was getting herself into.
I'm proud of Amanda.
She's made it the longest. She's made it the longest. Aside from Kathy, she's made it the longest so far. So, who has been your greatest encourager? And are you more of a connector? Are you more of a corrector or connector? Gosh, I'm probably a balance of that.
Me too. Me too.
Monique, we got some work.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I could, here, let me help you fix that.
gosh,
But I
strong.
come from a place of wanting to help, though. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I learned this. I heard this.
It's all in how we do the
Yeah.
correction, right? It's can we help them rather than just do it for them,
Yeah.
which has been the biggest challenge with building a real estate team. Like now I can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna just never mind, get out of my.
The plan?
Let's be real here, right? We don't know everything.
An aromatic plant with grayish leaves.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's, you like smoke it and it gets rid of ghosts and bad spirits and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Sage a house, right? Yeah, that's our real estate background, right? You know,
That's
so.
all other- yeah, that's
So-
another name.
As a leader, when are you a sage? So when are you
Trying to,
Clear the air.
clear? Oh, there you go. Clear the air, help, right? And when are you a guide for your people?
Well, if it's what we think it is, sage clearing the air, and it's when you're in communication. And then when you're a guide for your people, I think is when you lead by example.
Yes. Yeah, I like that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You take the time to be that person so that they know.
Mhm.
And then there's other times where you just allow for them.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do that. So, every relational connection starts with the decision to make the effort to connect.